have a great privilege that we've got Louise Wood from NHS England, who's the National Senior Project Manager, who will be starting off with, thanks for starting the recording, Leslie, welcome everybody, who will be providing a national context for PINS. Then we will be looking at some of the self-assessment key themes that we've picked out. And then Leslie's going to talk to you about the menus of support that have been developed for our PINS schools and introduce you to our providers. And then Helen will round things off with how to access all the resources on NHS Futures. And as I said, there should be time for questions at the end. So at this point, it's my great privilege to hand over to Louise. We are going to swap slides because we've got two different slide decks. But Louise, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
I can do. So hello, everybody. Thank you for the introduction, Julie. So my name is Louise Wood. We have two national programme leads for PINS in NHS England. I'm one of them, and my colleague Dion Hollis is the other. And we both have the privilege of working with 20 projects. So there's 40 PINS projects in total covering the whole of England. And I have the privilege particularly of working with Cheshire and Merseyside. So whilst Helen battles with the slide deck, just a little bit more background. So my professional background is as a teacher, and Dion's professional background is an occupational therapist. So we kind of come at it from both an education and a health perspective. I moved to NHS the way my life took me, but I've always been interested in working with schools and focused on school-based work within the NHS. So rolling out the first SEND mental health support teams in schools when they kind of were created in 2018-19, being a parent carer governor in the mental health and the SEND space for many years, and now the absolute privilege of project managing the PINS programme nationally. So I've got about 7 or 8 slides. I'm not going to read from them. There's nothing worse than that, because everybody on the call can see them. I'm very happy for them to be shared afterwards. I just thought what I would do is talk to them, kind of pulling out the elements that I think you need to know, either because they sit with us nationally and I've got that knowledge, or kind of to provide some reassurance and some guidance about what is this strange thing that we call PINS, so Partnership for Inclusion of Neurodiversity in Schools. So my first slide, thank you, Helen. This project is quite unique. It's the first national partnership of its kind between the Department for Education, the Department for Health and Social Care and NHS England, working nationally together with the National Network of Parent Carer Forums. It's unique in that the money for the funding for PINS actually flows through integrated care boards. So obviously through partnerships like Julie, Leslie and Helen represent. And this is really helpful because it enables us to, through health, access DFE funding to work together in schools to support our neurodiverse children. And that partnership's really important because we each bring different skills to the table and different commissioning and contracting arrangements and existing partnerships and contracts that enable us to work in different ways in schools. So that partnership's really important to us. PINS is a little different than maybe other training programs or support programs that you've participated in as schools before, and I will go into that detail, but the nub of PINS is that we draw specialists and experts from wherever we might find them, wherever they need to come from, be that health, education, or within our parent carer forums or the voluntary sector, to support mainstream primary schools, families and children. Now, there is a robust evaluation of PINS. So we've just had the interim evaluation report for year 1 of PINS, and we have the second year will also be evaluated. And I think what I really want to stress here is that evaluation is independent. So It's independent of ourselves in NHS England. It's independent of the DFE. It will never name a system, a school, a partner, anybody. So we ask as the national team that you participate in the evaluation so that we can really understand what works for schools and in schools for children and families. There is no requirement for you to make particular changes or to move in a particular direction. PINS is for you to enjoy, to gain benefit from, but we just ask that you participate in the evaluation so that we can really understand what works and what doesn't work in this space. And can I have the next slide, please, Helen? So what is it that we're aiming to do? So as I've kind of alluded to, the core of PINS is bringing experts and specialists from local organisations into schools. And through this, we hope to increase schools' confidence and expertise in supporting neurodiversity in their classrooms and across their schools. And when I say that, we absolutely understand that some schools are experts in inclusion and supporting neurodiversity, and they're as welcome as schools that have got maybe a greater distance to travel. This is about tailoring support to meet schools' needs and to upskill and increase confidence and expertise in supporting neurodiversity, whatever that looks like for that particular school. We, alongside that, in terms of upskilling and confidence building, we want to help schools to think about and ultimately to improve their school environment for their children so that we really start to grow that inclusion of all pupils, but particularly those with neurodiverse conditions. And finally, PINS is interesting in that it is about the training and the support that schools get, but it's also about changing the way that we work together. So really strengthening our partnerships between everybody that has to come around a school community to improve the learning and the experience for our children. So partnerships between parents and schools, with parents and providers, with providers and schools, and then ourselves as statutory organisations like Health and Local Authority. And that's really important, and that's being evaluated as much as the actual changes that we're seeing through the interventions and support. So that's what we're trying to do. Can I have the next slide, please, Helen? So PINS, again, another unique thing about PINS is that it will look very different in different areas. So if any of our school members move on to or talk to a school in a different area that's outside of Cheshire Merseyside, the what will be different because A, it needs to be unique to the needs of the individual school, but B, we're testing, and this is a proof of concept programme, so we're testing all of the different ways in which we can support schools. So by that nature, we have 40 different PINS projects. So, but there will be elements that are kind of mandatory for all projects. So all schools will go through the experience of the following. So we expect that all areas provide, commission 37.5 hours of practitioner support. And we encourage schools to take up as much of that support as, ideally 37.5 hours. I think we had one school in Kent in the first year that took up 100 hours of support. I'm not asking you to do that and completely overwhelm yourselves, but absolutely, there's something in that kind of the amount of support that you get really starts to show benefit. So you're going to be offered 37.5 hours, and we encourage you to take up as much of that as you can. The support is commissioned, must be guided by every school undertaking a self-assessment. And I know they've already been circulated and that you'll have returned them to the project team. And that self-assessment is really important because this is about meeting school needs. So that where I was talking about meeting schools where they are on their journey. So, and this is how we enable the tailoring, bringing in the right experts that you need in your school to continue on your journey of supporting neurodiversity. The self-assessment is then compared to a national menu of support, and this covers 6 domains in areas that we typically would see neurodiverse children and schools needing support to think about where they might want the interventions and the support. So there's that national menu of support. The project team take the self-assessment and marry the two up to think about what is it that they will offer in terms of training and support. The next kind of key point for us is that the support provided through PINS must focus on a whole school approach. So this is thinking about how we bring all of our school staff to be thinking about how we include a range of children, particularly our children with SEND and neurodiversity. So funding cannot be used for direct support for individual children. And I guess that's where this programme differs again from previous training offers and previous support, particularly maybe from our health colleagues, where our speech and language therapists, occupational therapists might come into a school to do a piece of work with a particular children. That's very much not where we see PINS sitting, and this is about actually how can we work more generally across classrooms, across the school, inside and outside of the school building, to really think about inclusion in a different way and use their expertise, but kind of to add value in a different way. And the final element that we expect all schools, when they're participating in PINS, to participate in is to engage with parent carer forum organisation colleagues. They will be offering you a variety of parent engagement activities, because we recognise that actually we need to be supporting our parent carers to share their experiences of our school communities and to support schools to grow in their confidence and their capabilities of working with parents, getting some of that consistency across school and home and working together for the benefit of our children. Can I have the next slide, please, Helen? So I've titled my presentation, What Does Good Look Like? And very much from a national perspective. So thinking outside of Cheshire and Merseyside, although I know that they absolutely will hit all of these 4 key areas, but this is what good looks like from a national perspective. So we absolutely want the support to be provided in a bespoke way. So we start that process with the self-assessments, but the actual support that's provided to schools really meets needs, is tailored to what our schools have asked us to provide. Bespoke could be one-to-one support into your school, and I know that that is a strength of Cheshire and Merseyside's model, and Julie and Leslie will be kind of explaining more of that, and your practitioners as you move through the project. It could be bespoke in that if a number of schools have asked for support, for example, about thinking about mental health needs of neurodiverse children, then training can be provided through PINS, and that could be to a group of schools. The second area that good looks like for the national delivery team is that it's about bringing expertise. It's about bringing quality provision into schools. So even though this is provided in a different way, we would still expect that same professional, clinical expertise to be applied. It's just being applied in a whole school way, in a slightly different way than you may have previously received it. And one of the elements I particularly like working with Cheshire and Merseyside is they've really thought about what worked well, what did schools really appreciate in year 1, and how can they take that learning and ensure that we build on that quality improvement for year 2. So really excited about what year 2 will look like in Cheshire and Merseyside. The next element of what good looks like is whole school. So we want, not only do we think about start to think about inclusion as being kind of moving into that space of being a golden thread. So we think about inclusion in all that we do. So how we greet pupils at the start of the day, what inclusion at unstructured periods of the day looks like, but also when we start thinking about policies and how can we think about changing our policies and our procedures so we think about neurodiversity and inclusion in its broadest sense. So what good looks like nationally is that a variety of staff can be welcomed into the training, into the support. So we welcome midday supervisors, we welcome reception staff, cleaners, governors, whoever you want to include on your inclusion journey, then we very much welcome them and support them to access. And then it helps our SENCOs who have obviously wear many hats with that cascading because actually of the information through PINS, because those individuals can join in the training and the support directly and be on the journey from the beginning. And I guess the final element of what good looks like nationally is that appreciate that kind of this is a whistle-stop tour, my presentation, and I'm talking about PINS is this, that and the other, and I don't want it to sound overwhelming. So I include this last point because I think it's really important that PINS sits in that prevention, that early intervention space. This is about what small change we can make, that you need to make in your schools to really bring a change for our neurodiverse children. So that might be something as simple as introducing movement breaks at the kind of transition points in the day. It might be thinking about how we encourage conversations between our young people about what neurodiversity might mean, what does it mean to them, what do they think it means. It can be in big or as little as you need, but we definitely have seen in year one that sometimes the small changes and that light bulb moment really helps the school to move on. And if that's what they get from PINS, then that's what good looks like for us nationally. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So I'll skim through this slide because I'm conscious. I think I've got till about 25 past, maybe, Julie, if you can kind of give me a nod. So want to get to the next couple of slides. So
we have 5 minutes.
Another 5 minutes. Okay, 27. Thank you. I probably need them, Julie. Okay, so we've got about 1,200 schools participating in this year's PINS. We had about 1,600 schools in the first year. The difference in number is because we actually are doing a slightly different approach in year two, in that we are continuing to work with the year one schools, so the 1,600 year one schools, to help them embed their learning, recognising that these changes don't happen overnight and actually we need to have longer time to kind of actually make the change and start to see the impact in our schools. So that's the difference in the number. We have had lots of interest in participating in PINS now that we kind of know what PINS is, and we can really promote and help our schools to understand it. And we've had lots of schools willing to participate in year two, which is fantastic. I had some common themes identified through the self-assessment process, and most areas will kind of commence the delivery of the actual support in September and early October, to finish at the end of March in the next calendar year. And the evaluators, as I've said, have completed all their evaluation activities to year one, have kind of writing that up, have issued us with the draft report, and we'll be starting with the evaluation activities, and we'll be in contact with schools for a baseline survey to understand where you are, again, not to identify individual schools, but to kind of be able to measure change across the programme. Can I have the next slide, please? And that will be my final slide I'll talk to. Thank you, Helen. So what did we actually see? So what did PINS look like in year one? I thought that might be a useful place to end, along with some of the impacts we've seen. And there's a lot of words in this slide. So absolutely have a look at your kind of leisure afterwards. But most projects delivered physical and sensory audits, so audits of the physical and sensory environment in schools, and then offered a follow-up report and advice and support to embed what was shared in those audits. Predominantly they were led by OTs, and I know that that's something that Cheshire and Merseyside are obviously going to be delivering for you, and then they've led to various changes in the environment. So some schools have put in sensory circuits, of reorganised calm spaces to support children to regulate their mood and behaviour. We've had a lot of interest from schools for support around communication and language. That's been mostly delivered by our SALT speech and language therapists and our educational psychologist colleagues. So some training around understanding the social communication needs of neurodiverse pupils, thinking about how we change our classroom language to aid learning, and then that wider piece about communication friendly classrooms, thinking about our visual aids, what our presentations around the classroom look like, and how can we make sure that they're best adapted to support neurodiverse pupils learn. Lots of support around mental health, and I know that'll be the part of the offer for Cheshire and Merseyside. So thinking about maybe some mental health issues that we feel that we recognise in all children. So, for example, about anxiety, but actually thinking about how they may present in a child with neurodiversity, and that might be slightly different for children who are not neurodiverse. Neurodivergent, because neurodiversity we all have. And then finally, we've had some training around just that general knowledge about neurodiversity and how it impacts learning, and some fabulous support from our parent carer forums around co-production. So just really quickly, I've got a minute left, haven't left myself enough time. So what impact have we seen? So we've absolutely seen that the bespoke input, particularly the coaching and mentoring from our specialist, was particularly valued. And maybe that's where I'll kind of leave this, but I think it's just that this is different. This is having those specialists more available to us, thinking about the wider school context. And I think that is certainly what our year one schools have fed back has been the most valuable bit of being as PINS, having that expertise come in, talk to us on a one-to-one basis, and really think about where we can go with our inclusion journeys. So lots of other great impact, particularly our parent carer work, and really strengthening support and relationships between parents and schools. But I haven't planned my speech very well, and I've run out of time, so I'll leave you to read the rest at your leisure. The next slide is just some quotes from actual schools that have been involved in year one and what they've got out, and I thought that might be nice to share. But I'll stop talking there, Julie, and leave the rest of the lunchtime session to you.
Thanks so much, Louise. That was brilliant. I think you've given us that context so that we can see where we fit. And it brings us nicely into what we're going to cover now for the rest of our webinar for Cheshire and Merseyside. So really good. Please do read Louise's slides and pass them on afterwards, because there's a lot of detail in there, and I think it's good to read and reflect on them as you go at the stage of the PINS project where you are now. So Helen, if we could have the other slides back up, and we'll stay with this set of slides. And I'm conscious I've probably not said who's in the audience today for those of you joining us. We know we've got an audience of school staff from our PINS schools, but also our local authority leads for PINS, whether that's directors of education, heads of education, or other heads of SEND and inclusion who are our PINS leads. We've got parents and carers who are with us today as well. We've also got a couple of colleagues from the ICB from our neurodevelopmental programme, because they're keen, so hi to Laura and Helen, keen to see where PINS is going to support the rollout of our new ND profiling tool, the This Is Me tool. So you will have heard of this in your local areas as you get going as well. We think PINS is a really good way to build the capacity in schools to give you the confidence around the ND cohorts to be supporting the rollout of that tool as well. So I'm going to move on now to my little section, which is around the self-assessment key themes. And there'll be echoes within this from Louise's presentation as well. So we can have the next slide, Helen. So
yeah, sorry, I am struggling with this. I think I might have to stop sharing it and come back again. Just give me a second. Sorry.
Do you
about
want me
this.
to share?
It's just
I'll share it. If you pull it down, I'll share it, Helen.
Yeah,
we have these moments in the IT for the ICB at the moment. I don't know, colleagues, we keep having lots of updates and things seem to be very different once we've done updates, and things that did work beautifully don't.
I think it's because I was sharing the others and it's confused it, and
it's
it won't let me share.
Can't help, Helen.
It's so annoying.
So I shall move on. So just as a recap, for those of you who are joining us, the self-assessments were the first thing that you were tasked with doing if you were schools who were accepted onto the PINS project. And the self-assessment, and again for NDP colleagues, has 6 domains for the schools to complete. You can see there as a refresher that you had to look at leadership, culture and values and think about that from a couple of different aspects and ask your governing body for contributions around that. We asked you about the how confident and capable you were in identifying and managing mental health in children with ND, their readiness to learn and about teaching and learning, and they're really focused on the environment where our children are learning, the communication, as in speech language communication skills that they may have or might be a challenge to learning, and then how you're capturing pupil voice feedback within your schools. We also asked for separate reflections, really, once you've completed all that self-assessment, about your priorities for school support for each domain. And we've really borne that in mind as we've developed your own bespoke offers, menus of support for your schools as well. We've got 29 self-assessments back. We're still chasing one. There's always one. But we appreciate that it was a really big piece of work to do, but it will be crucial now in terms of that menu of support that you get and going forward as well. And you'll remember, as Louisa said, that we're looking at an offer of 37.5 hours per school, and it's a combination of on-site visit support and of training, which is likely to be virtual so that it can be recorded and shared more widely. We want as many people as possible on the PINS bus in your schools in Cheshire and Merseyside as possible. Also, what we would say in Cheshire and Merseyside, we've really chosen to channel the funding into health support. So Louise has presented that anybody could kind of be invited in to build the capacity within schools. We really wanted to offer something that complemented the NHS commission services that you might have available locally, which can sometimes be hard to access, so that we could be delivering something for you from a whole school basis that complemented that, but could be immediately available within PINS as well. Our aim is really to increase knowledge and skills and confidence. I know as I'm a speech and language therapist by profession, and I spent years delivering communication friendly schools training. And I know you need both. You need that knowledge and skills, that enthusiasm, that motivation to do something different. You need the confidence to do it, and you need both of those to actually change your practice. Otherwise, it's very useful, very helpful, but it goes in a drawer and nothing changes. And it's crucial for us going forward with the increasingly identifiable population of children with ND, that we can identify them early and meet their needs early to stop issues arising and be supporting when there are issues, that we've got that confidence and capability to be able to do that in our schools. If I can have the next slide, Helen. So what we thought would be, oh no,
I think you're sharing.
It's me, I've forgotten.
Yes, all right, don't worry.
So what we thought would be useful is, as well as just giving you the recap, is really to share with you some of the key themes that have come out of our self-assessments from our Cheshire and Merseyside schools, so that you can consider, is this where you kind of fit, or is there something different about it? Now, as we go through, there are some things that are very obviously going to be picked up by our menus of support with our health practitioners coming into schools. But there are other aspects as well where we'll be looking to our local authority colleagues to lead on this. And there's some of these in the first couple that I'll come to. Just to say as a heads up, immediately after this webinar, we will be reaching out to our local authority colleagues to do a local area partnership meeting as follow-up from this, to discuss with them the bits they're going to lead on, that they can support the schools. We'll have our parents and carers with us to see what they can lead on in terms of co-production and what we're going to do. And then very much about how we're going to spread this learning from the word go. You'll be aware that, or I think you'll be aware, that the same amount of funding went to each ICB, each of the 42 ICBs in the country, and we're a very large ICB. So whereas in some others, doing year 2 of PINS enables them to reach 50% of their schools. For us in Cheshire and Merseyside, we had 37 last year, we've got 30 this year. That enables us to reach directly just under 9% of our schools. So with this approach, we've got to be sharing the learning from the word go. And that's the challenge to our local authority colleagues, especially our directors of education. We'll do it in a bespoke way, dependent upon what structures you've already got in place to be able to share learning, to share best practice. But some of these things we'll be wanting you to take a lead on as well. So going from top to bottom of the slide, when we looked at the leadership, culture and values domain and dimension of the self-assessment tool into the 2 parts, we were interested to see that actually there were several schools who indicated support for all aspects of leadership, culture and values. They really acknowledged that if there'd been a change in leadership, they really needed to start from the bottom up. And as Louise really nicely described it, they got further on the journey to go than perhaps other schools who were saying to us, actually, we're really good. We're the kinds of schools where children and young people with ND are signposted to, but we still want to get better. So we've got a whole range really in terms of leadership, culture and values. For those who needed support, they specifically asked for support on how to use data to monitor inclusion in activities, and specifically for website development as well. So that's one of the things we'll be looking to local authority colleagues to lead us on. In terms of part 2, it was very much around identifying aspects where you need to enable parents and carers to input more into school practice and policy. And again, we're going to be reaching out to our parent carer forum leads to be supporting us in terms of how we can enable schools to be able to do that. There was a request, for example, for support for delivering parent workshops, and one school in particular saying we want to actually develop a parent carer forum in school so that it's going to inform how we work going forward. Then from a mental health point of view, obviously we're really focused upon the health offer for this. And you asked for some specific things around training. You said you wanted to be able to understand better mental health presentation in pupils with neurodiversity, in those neurodivergent children. You wanted to understand the impact of parental mental health on children's learning and the impacts of mental health on behaviour. These are all things that we are passing to our providers and setting them the challenge to cover in their training and to develop that bespoke training to meet those needs for those schools. You asked as well for specific requests around training on how to identify and address masking, anxiety and low mood, especially in girls. I think we're starting to recognise more and more that those girls who look like they're coping but aren't need help early on, and we need to be better at identifying very initially when there might be issues that are starting to arise. Again, it'll be tasked to our providers. In terms of readiness to learn, you identified that you wanted to understand better the functions of behaviour. Again, we know that behaviour is a signal for something else going on, whether it's something to do with mental health or communication underneath. And there's that real need for wanting to understand what might be underlying the behaviour that we're seeing. We think training should help you to be able to understand that better. There were several requests again to support the development of behaviour and relationship policies. And again, we'll probably look to our local authority colleagues to guide us on that in terms of what best practice is for policy development in schools, who needs to be around the table and share templates and that kind of thing to be able to get that kind of in place. And then we had some very specific health related requests in terms of the impact on sleep difficulties on learning, in terms of food sensitivities, and also understanding how home life can really impact on learning as well, and what schools can do to be able to address those needs when they're identified in a really positive way to support inclusion of our children and young people, despite what other challenges they might have. Can I have my next slide, please? I can see there is one hand up, but I'm going to carry on. If you could pop your question in the chat and we'll take it at the end.
Julie, you're in charge of the slides.
Not with it today, am I? I'm obviously in the flow.
Well, it's my fault for not being
used to
able
you
to share them in the
slides,
first
Helen.
place.
Second slide. So in terms of teaching and learning, again, several schools said they actually wanted support with all aspects of this. And again, we'll look to our learning, our local authority colleagues in terms of what's already set up that could support them. What else can they link into if they're SENCOs who are new to post, if there's a senior leadership team who's new into post and they're wanting to make sure that they've got everything in place for that. There was an indication around some training around learning styles, evidence-based classroom resources, and several requests for evidence-based use of teaching assistants. That was prominent in the self-assessments as well. In terms of the environment, you won't be surprised to know that the vast majority of self-assessments indicated a request for a sensory audit in schools. And we know that's where we will be directing our Sensory Hive, our provider for the sensory kind of OT, to be doing those walk through schools, even schools who feel that you've got it really right. We know that those walk through schools and those sensory audits will always reveal something else that can be done. We're on that continuous learning journey together, and sensory audits are a good way to start. I had a request for training that supports understanding of the different impacts of sensory environments on ND children. So again, that we can see when it's working and when it isn't, and what else can be tried. And again, physical audits were routinely requested within our self-assessments within Cheshire and Merseyside. A good practice checklist was suggested as well. And then finally, communication. Again, typically classroom language audits were something that were requested by the majority of schools, and this is something we'll be tasking our speech and language therapy colleagues with in terms of delivering. And again, some specific training around the role of the physical environment in communication and the use of those visual aids, visual supports for learning that schools are keen to get in place for all children. We know if you put things like that in place for children and young people with ND or with SEND, it benefits all of the cohort. Training again was specifically requested, and this was a really interesting one for us, for school staff to know how best to support peer relationships and how best to support peer acceptance. We know that there is a recognition this isn't easy to do, but it's crucial. In terms of emotional health and well-being for a child, those relationships, that ability to make and maintain relationships are really key to their kind of quality of life and their outcomes. And so at this point, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Leslie, who's going to now take you into the provider side of PINs in our schools. Leslie, I'm going to move on your slide. Give me the nod when you want me to move them on.
Okay, will do. Good afternoon, everybody. The menu of support, there are two main elements to this. We will have a core offer of training, online training, and we will shortly be sending you out a schedule of topics, dates and times. We try to make sure it's the same time every day. It will be recorded so that you can use the recording as you see fit with your whole staff group, governors, parents, however you see fit to use it in your school. It's based on the core elements of the self-assessment and the themes that have arisen from it and from our learning last year. We've added some modules based on the interest that we found last year. So the tailored elements of the PINS offer will be the specialists coming into your schools. And today I'm only going to cover the health element of that, not the local authority and education element. So that support will be based on your self-assessment, the issues that your pupils demonstrate, the questions that your staff have. And the support that you get, the training and implementing that training, and the support for implementing training will be specific to your circumstances. It's not just that one size doesn't fit all schools, but one approach doesn't fit every child, as you well know. So our three main elements are mental health. Last year we had an excellent offer from mental health in school teams. They're not going away, but this year our mental health offer will come from My Happy Mind. That's a whole school preventative approach. It will cover every child in your school or reach every child in your school. It will train your staff in My Happy Mind and how to implement that with your children and help your children understand their mind. We haven't got time to go through the details today, but we'll come back round to this. We're also sending you specialist providers for environment and communication. So for both, as you can see on here, we have Mid Cheshire Trust and the Sensory Hive. And they will be helping you, and they will have looked at your self-assessment. They will be helping you interpret where you're at and what is going to be most useful for you in your circumstances right now. It will be, I'm saying, a minimum of 3 visits. They will visit this term and they will visit in the spring term to top and tail it, and in between times you and they will decide what support you want and need and how they're going to work. And that can include advice, training, coaching as needed and agreed, and that may change as you go. It's a learning journey for everybody. It will respond and flex to how you progress through this and what you feel you need. We have asked our providers to work together collaboratively throughout the whole PINS project. So they're coming in to see you about their own, thanks Julie, you read my mind, they're coming in for their specialism, but there are always overlaps, and they will discuss and share with the other providers what they're doing. And if there's anything mutually or jointly that they can do together, they will. Now, we haven't got that time for them all to talk to you today, but if they've got their cameras on and you flick those little arrows at the top, hopefully they'll be waving. So from My Happy Mind, we haven't got Laura today, we've got Sam Wilkinson, who's on the meeting. She will be in touch with you all if you've opted in very shortly. She's already probably spoken to some of you. And from Mid Cheshire Trust, and we haven't got Matt today, but we've got some of his speech and language and sensory staff. So I'm hoping they're brave enough to put the cameras on and give you a wave. And from Sensory Hive, we do have Hayley Pedden here, who's the manager of the service. Hayley's a teacher by background, but she has specialist speech and language therapy and sensory occupational therapy staff who will be working with you alongside herself. Because she's got your t-shirt. So as they're working with you, and mental health is a good example, it may be that you need or want other providers to come on board or do some extra work with you, and these providers will flag that. It may be they can bring them in themselves, so we'll already have a link with mental health in school teams, but they will also have a link with, I'm going to give you one example, Alder Hey for the Vanguard approach for trauma and more significant needs. And I think, is that my last slide for now?
It is, Leslie. Well done. Very concise. So I'm going to thank you for that.
Fingers up to give me the countdown.
No, you
go me.
So hopefully you've set eyes on your providers. I realise it's live on the screen, so I can't really see what's going on. But we're just going to finish off with Helen, who is our SEND administrator. She'll introduce herself in terms of the NHS Futures platform, because you'll appreciate that as we start delivering all this training, we want you to make sure you've got access to a whole library of training, and you can select from whatever is on Futures to be sharing. We're obviously going to give you the bespoke offer, but you might see other things on there that you want to access as well. So I'll come over to you, Helen, and onto your slide.
Thank you, Julie. Hi, everybody. That's it. Yeah, so most of you should have had an invitation for the NHS Futures platform. You should get an email from the Futures platform system. And if you accept the invitation, then you can access the site. So do get in touch with me if you've either not had the invitation or if you're struggling with it in any way. But when you do get onto the site, that will be your landing page in front of you now. And if you click where the arrow is, Workspace Members section, if we could have the next slide, Julie, please. It will take you to this, and you will see it's pretty much like most systems. There's lots of folders for different things. And so we'll put recordings in in one of the folders. There'll be the webinars, all the resources and slides that we're able to share. As we've presented them and shared them, they will be stored in here. Now, you won't have rights to upload anything, but if you wanted to upload something, if there's a resource that you want to share with other schools, just send it to me and I'll upload it for you. As I say, any problems, just get in touch. But that's what we're thinking, that if you can't attend any of the online sessions, then that's where the recordings will be and the slides as well. So just pop me an email if you need anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. And then Leslie, I'm going to come back to you for the next steps.
Sorry, Julie, I was answering the chat. Right, so next steps. I haven't written it on here, but please can I ask you to brief your admin officers. Last year we had a lot of providers saying, I keep trying to get in touch with the schools and they're not getting back to me, and we had a lot of schools saying, I'm not hearing from the providers. So we're trying our best to minimise that problem for you, which is partly why we've given you the calendar, so that you can make sure that any input from PINS is spaced those 2 terms and you don't have everything all happening at once. That's the last thing you need. But also that will help Helen with us being able to report back to Louise on how things are going. But also, if your admin is primed, if anybody phones school, can you ask them to make sure that they can go back to that person with an answer about a date? So if you can book in the core training sessions, once you have the schedule, we expect them to be this format. Last year we did them at the end of the school day for 1 hour to minimise the disruption to your school. Record them so you can use them with other staff who can't come to these, and we can use them with parents. And they should start in October. We felt it was very important that we start with a lived experience. So your first session will be a session run by parents incorporating what children say. The second one will be the parents doing a session for you on what good co-production looks like. So their hints, tips, encouragement, and so on. And then the rest will follow all the themes from the self-assessments. If you see, when you get the schedule, anything you would like on there that isn't on there, you let us know, we will arrange that. The coffee mornings are important. Parent Carer Forum will be doing a coffee morning at the beginning and at the end, but they will need to speak to you after the coffee morning to have a meeting with your senior leadership team to discuss the parent survey and to discuss the feedback from the coffee morning, and they will give you any help and advice they are able to help you develop that production in a manageable way. And then you've got to book in your first visits for the My Happy Mind and for Mid Cheshire Trust or Sensory Hive for your environment and your sensory visit and for your language visit. If you can do it this half term, it will just make everything else flow more easily. But you know what your capacity is. This is down to you and the providers to arrange how this is going to work. I think pre and post visit, if you could think about who you would like that specialist to work with, it's not necessarily the same person every time, and it may not always be your SENCO.
Yeah, no, Jenny,
they need to have some opportunity to talk to you, certainly after the first visit, I would think, and maybe others. And also, with your local authority or whoever from your local authority supports you around education for children who are neurodiverse or who have special education needs and disabilities, we'll be talking to your local authority leads about support for the education elements of that PINS self-assessment. So think about what you want from them, and that can be booked in too. especially if you can think about, let us know what changes you want to see at the end of this, and how you know when you get there, what observable change do you want to see. Because whilst there's a national evaluation, we in Cheshire and Merseyside, that's us as a collaborative, we need to think about what difference this has made to us, as well as thinking about where we go next, as Julie has said. It's the end of my slide.
Was on mute. Brilliant, thank you, Leslie. Our contact details are there. The slides will be shared with you straight after. I will stop sharing now. If there are any issues at all, please email all three and one of us will pick up your email quickly, so we can get it to the right person and resolve anything that we can sooner rather than later, really. So that's the end of our presentation today. I don't know if we've got any questions in the chat, or if any of you would like to ask questions of any of us today. Otherwise, we've got literally 6 minutes left.
Can I just ask, moving forward, because the next steps, are we waiting, because Speech and Language have contacted us, are we waiting for these professionals? Because I hear this and I'm keen to move on, but am I actually waiting for someone else to contact me, or can I do something? I feel like I'm being given next steps, but I don't know how to make them.
Okay, Leslie, I'll bring you back in to answer that one.
Okay, I suggest that wait, as Helen put in the chat, wait for your provider to contact you, arrange those meetings, and start your journey in your conversations with those people and with your
Sorry,
parent
I don't know whether it's my sound, it keeps cutting out. So am I waiting for them to contact me?
Yes.
I'm not kind of,
yes,
okay, it's
yes,
just hard when I'm hearing next steps, but I can't actually make them. That's fine, then I can kind of.
Your preparation has been your self-assessment. So when they contact you, you'll arrange for them to come into school, and that will be, you'll be on your way then. That's all. And
are we getting some support? Because I've done the self-assessment and I have an idea of what we need at our school. Is someone working alongside me, or am I saying, right, great, because I've already had contact from SALT, am I just going with it, or is someone going to kind of guide what we're doing?
But SALT and all the providers have read your self-assessment, so they've got a feeling, they've got a view of where you think where you are now, and they will come in and discuss it with you, and you will agree together where you start and what you're going to do. You may have a particular cohort, you may have new staff, it's whatever is happening in your school, and they've got experience of doing this particular project, so they'll be able to guide you as well.
Okay, thank you.
In addition to that, there are conversations going on with your PINs lead in your local authority, who will have an overview of all of the self-assessments of their schools, so that they can see what key themes they need to support and how they're going to spread the learning amongst the PINs cluster and beyond. So we are wanting to share that expertise from the word go, but also offer that as support as well. So you'll have that overview from that local area partnership with local authority and Parent Carer Forum, and myself or Leslie as part of that.
Who's the PINs lead?
So which place are you from? Which local authority are you from?
So Wirral, is it Mark?
It's Mark Bellamy.
Okay, thank you. Just so I'm kind of pulling it all together. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Kath, you've got a question.
Yes. We've had a couple of coffee mornings already, just as like an introduction and to give a hand with the surveys. But what we're being asked from the schools is there an idea of the uptake of the surveys? I think there's been a bit of maybe parents aren't understanding what the ask is, and that it's an important thing for them to fill out. So I think it would be helpful if schools could have some feedback as to how many surveys have been received per school, if that's possible, so they can maybe give another push.
It's a good idea. Helen, we'll discuss this afterwards, because you're overseeing the parent survey feedbacks, aren't you? So you can see how many are coming through.
Yeah, I've just posted in the. Sorry, Julie. Yeah, I've just posted in the chat in answer to that question. I will check. The deadline is the 19th, but we have had quite a few come in. But I did notice that Wirral was a little bit on the low side, but I will check again and let you have some numbers for each.
That would be really helpful, Helen. Will you let Kath know directly?
Yeah, will do.
Brilliant. Jill, we've got a question. I'm conscious we've got 2 minutes left and I really don't want
Hi.
to go over.
Sorry.
Over to you.
Hopefully not too long. I'm just slightly confused. I'm Jill Cooper. I'm one of the locality managers from CCICP here instead of Matt Southall, and Liz Dunn is here too. We've just obviously read the spec and what we're to provide, and it's talking about 2 to 3 visits per school over 2 terms. So are we expecting to provide, I suppose, whatever the schools are wanting within those sessions?
Yes.
Effectively.
Yeah. It's a bespoke offer. We're expecting, we can talk to you offline, Jill, so we don't take up time now.
Yeah.
But in theory, it's for them to do a walk through the schools, to do that audit, and then depending on the findings from that, negotiating with schools, whether it is training, whether it's what needs to be done in order to support that school. So it will be bespoke per school. So we don't want to preempt what the schools will be.
I'm just thinking about the number of sessions.
Yes.
So I might need to come back to you on that. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Thanks.
No problem. And if we make the last question to Stuart, how are you, Stuart?
Hiya. Sorry, it's not so much a question, it's just a bit of an observation, and I will be quick. We've already had our coffee morning, and I did ping. I know you're busy, Kath. I did ping some thoughts over to Kath. I just think for schools that haven't yet had their coffee morning, when you've got your PCPW person in school, actually spend a little bit of time with them before they go into parents, just to catch them up on what your school already does, what your school looks like, even a quick wander around. Because I think the session was great yesterday, Kath, but I feel like some of the feedback coming from parents wouldn't have been the same if we'd have had that chance to catch up. Hindsight's
Can I really jump in there?
Go on, please do.
It wasn't an official pins, it was just a saying hello. So we will book.
Well, there you go. Before you come in for your official one, I'm showing you around and talking to you.
Absolutely. You got a freebie that might have perhaps preempted.
Oh yeah, sorry, I've just booked you in for more with other people there, Kath. Apologies. But yeah, I just think just to make sure that the flavour of the school's there, so that your PCPW rep gets what you're about, because we're all at different phases in our journeys, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. I'll see you at the next one, Kath. I'll definitely make sure I'm free. Thanks, everyone.
If you want to put any other questions in the chat, you're more than welcome. We've just passed 1 o'clock, and I know I've got another meeting I'm meant to be on as well. So really good to see you all today. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks again to Louise and Leslie and Helen for co-presenting, and we will see you at the next webinar. But if there's any issues, please get in touch. In the meantime, we can talk to you one-to-one. Thanks for your time now.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. I'm just stop recording.
I'm just looking for the control. Yep. Yep. Done.